Welcome to the Photos by Mikey podcast. My name is Mikey, your host for today's episode. And today we have an amazing guest on. Her name is Michelle Dudley, a good friend of mine. She is also a wedding photographer based out of Southern California. And I'm super excited to share her amazing story and how she got into the wedding photography industry. So welcome, Michelle.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. How are you feeling? I know last week you felt kind of under the weather, right?
Yes. My family's been sick for probably the past month. Initially got the C word in early March. And then immediately after that got a cold, and that took us out. So finally we're feeling better. And hopefully my voice sounds normal to the people who know me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you sound actually fine. I don't know, maybe a couple days ago, probably a lot worse, right? I mean,
yeah. Like my voice was really raspy and gross. Like probably like a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, for those that don't know you, let's give some of the listeners a brief background about your photography history.
Well, I've been doing photography for about 17, 18 years. I started off as a hobby, like a lot of people, and it just naturally developed into a business. And I still love doing it. It's been a dream for it to become a career. And it's still fun. So it just keeps me going. I love meeting new people, and I just want to keep going with it.
Awesome. I know everybody has a different story on how they got into photography. So let's kind of dive into that. Like, when was your first time that you ever had like a camera in your hand?
Let's see. I was a late teenager, and I don't really remember how I got my first camera. Like, my family, we grew up really, really poor. So I don't even remember who gave it to me. I don't know if I got it for Christmas, but it was a Nikon. I think it's like an N35. I still have it in the garage, a film camera. And at that time I was just shooting everything, family holidays. I would just take pictures. And then I met my boyfriend, now husband, and he was in a car club. And so just naturally, I just started taking pictures of cars, and started taking pictures at car shows. So that it really developed initially with cars. And then one of our cousins got married, and I took pictures as a guest, and I printed the photos out because it was film back then. Yeah. Printed the photos. I got 2 copies. I kept one for me, and I sent them one, and they loved them. And my family from then on is like, wow, you take pictures, my daughter will take pictures for you. So it just naturally developed there. And then at the time, a lot of my friends were getting married. So I was like, hey, I'll take your pictures for you for free. And that's how I initially went from shooting cars and then straight into weddings, because a lot of my friends were getting married, and I was like, hey, I'll take your pictures for free. And shot maybe half a dozen weddings for friends for free. And then I was like, man, this is a lot of work, and it would cost money because it was film back then. Right. So I was having to pay to print their photos for them and send them off. I mean, it was a gift, but eventually I was like, wow, this costs a lot of money. So then I started charging like, hey, like just pay for like the printing fees and stuff like that. Right. And I just developed from there. And then my husband and I got married in 2004. And of course, I'm a photographer. So I researched photographers, and I found this company. I thought they were amazing. They seemed reputable, and met up with them. They, it's like company based. So they it's a company who contracts out multiple different type of photographers. And at the time I wasn't super experienced with photography. I like had an eye for it. So I could tell that, they were good quality. And we went for a consultation and they put all these albums out in front of us. And they're like, choose an album, a style that you like. And basically whatever album you choose, that's the photographer we're going to send out for your wedding because that's the style you like.
Got it.
So we ended up choosing a very vibrant, fun, non-traditional type of photographer. And everything seemed great until the wedding day. And the photographer we got could tell he was very inexperienced. And, just with the way the wedding day goes, we're having fun. We're just, taking pictures and stuff like that. And then once we got them back, I was like, these don't look anything like the photographer we chose, like the album.
Did you guys have a conversation with that specific photographer before the wedding?
No.
Oh.
No, we met up with like the planner person at the company. And we went into the office and there's, beautiful, gorgeous photos on the walls, maybe 6 to 10 albums on the table that we looked through to choose from. Everything seemed really legit. And this was before social media. Yeah. This was, before websites, before anything.
Right.
I don't even remember how I found them. I don't know. Maybe the penny saver, if anybody remembers that. But everything seemed really legit. And I was confident, that they were a good company.
Right.
We got the photos back and they were overexposed. Like me being, barely into photography at the time, I could tell like this guy is inexperienced. He's an amateur.
Right.
And then looking back, like all the poses he put us in was very traditional. It was nothing like what was in the album.
Right.
He used, it doesn't seem like he changed a lens or anything. In the album that we had, there's a lot of fisheye type photos, like very fun. Yeah. And so I was like, this is not the same. And so we had expressed to the company that we didn't like the album that came in our package. And we liked the leather album, which was like $900 more.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, yeah, we're like early 20s. We're like, we can't afford that right now. And they're like, oh, okay. Like we'll schedule your album design like 6 months out so you can maybe save up money.
Right.
And we're like, okay, cool. Like maybe in 9 months we can save and buy the album. 6 months comes and I'm like, we don't have the money. And she's like, okay, we'll bump out for the album design another 6 months. And so we did that for a couple years.
Right. And
then finally I told them, you know what, you guys, like we're, 20 somethings, like we're probably not going to be able to afford the $900 album upgrade. And she said, oh, okay. And I was like, can we just get like our prints and the negatives that came in the album? And she said, well, we lost your negatives. And I'm like, wait, what? I was like, we're supposed to have our album designed tomorrow. So what were you going to do if we had the money to do our album design? Would you have told us then that you lost our negatives? Or are they just lost now because you're not going to get another $900 from us? And she was like, well, we lost your negatives. Like I can't find them. And your weddings, it's been a couple years since your wedding. So we can't do anything for you. And she just hung up on me. And I was like, and I tried calling back and they ignored my calls.
Wow.
And her name is Amanda. I still remember.
I still remember her name.
Or Amanda, Amber or Amanda, one of those. And I called them like all the time for like weeks and months. And finally I was like, let's go down to the office. It was in Corona. And went down there and the office was empty. It was gone. And I was like, okay, like what's going on? Like, and then I would call them and then the number is disconnected now. And I'm like, what? Like, and all we had were proofs. They were like 5x7 printed proofs. Some of them were not great quality. They're like overexposed. And yeah, the company just disappeared. Oh. I was so heartbroken. I was like, we paid $2,100 in 2004 and all we got were proofs.
Whoa.
And I was heartbroken. I was just like as a bride, as a young couple, like that's all you have from your wedding day or your photos.
Yeah.
And so from that moment on, I was like, you know what? I'm going to really get serious about wedding photography because I want to be the photographer that clients can trust. I'm going to deliver good quality. I'm going to be personable, somebody that they like, like we never met our photographer. So I want my clients to know me,
right? To
trust me. Like ultimately trust is like the huge thing for me. I want them to know I'm going to show up. I'm going to say who I am. I'm going to deliver good quality. And you're going to be happy when you get your photos. So that moment was when I was like, you know what? I want to work with as many couples as possible because that's one less couple that is going to be fooled and duped and be upset about their photos. So that's what really got me passionate about weddings.
Yeah, I still can't believe that. That is, I mean, for any bride or groom, I mean, I would be very upset if, so what happened when you went to the, like literally there's no like people inside the office? Like, did they move or?
Yeah, they ended up moving. And at this point it was like, I think it was 2 or 3 years since our wedding. Cause we just kept bumping out our album design every 6 months. So yeah, like the building was empty, like we looked into the window and it was just an empty building now. And so like I would try to search for them and it was hard back then because there was no internet.
Right. Yeah.
There were no, companies didn't have websites that you can go to. Like you went to physical brick and mortar places for companies like that. And so like a couple more years passed by and I was watching the news and saw that they were interviewing a couple who was defrauded by their photography company. They actually didn't have a photographer show up on their wedding day.
Oh my goodness.
And there were 22, I think, other couples that they found that this company had defrauded. And so some people didn't get products like us. So we were lucky enough that somebody showed up.
Right. We
actually got proofs. But we didn't get like our prints and enlargements, our negatives, or our album. And then other photographers or other couples didn't even have a photographer show up. One couple was scrambling to get disposable cameras that their guests could take pictures for them. It was so sad.
Oh my goodness.
Other couples, same thing with us. They thought they were hiring somebody very experienced and got somebody very amateur. And yeah, so we were 23-ish couples. Do you want me to say the company?
It's up to you. Again, it's really up to you if you want to share that. Cause I'm not sure if there's still like in legal action. You don't have to if you don't. You could just kind of like mention, what happened after that. Did you actually take any legal action with them?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
Because it was at the point that we saw the news show about it, it had already been 5 years since our wedding.
Got it.
And I mean, we had our proofs. We didn't want to like join in any, class action lawsuit or whatever, which they were sued for a lot of money.
So at that time, they were still in business.
Yes.
When you saw on TV.
Yeah. When they left California, I think they went to Las Vegas. And then they had offices across the nation. I think it was like Colorado,
Right.
somewhere East Coast. So they had different offices, and in those offices, they contracted out photographers. So it was a big company. And the guy, I think he just got into legal trouble, and instead of using his money that he got, or using the money from his clients to pay for those quality photographers, he ended up keeping a lot of it. And I don't know, maybe got too caught up and didn't send photographers out to certain weddings, or, went cheap and got somebody amateur.
Right.
So he can keep more money. So yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was horrible.
So how did you feel, once you realized it was happening to other brides and grooms? Was that the tipping point for you? And you know what? I'm going to start doing better than this company.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely was, because how I felt, I just felt duped. I felt fooled. I felt dumb. I felt stupid. I felt heartbroken, I thought I was getting something, and I got something totally different.
Yeah, it seems like you were basically scammed. I mean, from what you were telling me, because they wanted to push that album, and then when you decided, you know what, I don't want the album, I just want, maybe the negatives. They're like, oh no, we lost it. I'm like, who says that?
Yeah. Like, we were supposed to be there. What if I did have the $900?
Exactly.
I wish I would have called back and said, what? I have it after all. And I wish I would have showed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that point, I don't know if they were just trying to get more money out of me, because it wasn't very long till we went down to the office, and it looked like it had been empty for a while. So yeah, I don't know. It really, we felt scammed. I was hurt and upset for years.
Yeah.
And so I never want couples to feel that way at all. So even when clients come to me and they can't hire me, I'm like, you know what? I'm out of budget for you, but let me send you these people that I love and trust. Even some are newbies, but hey, their quality is pretty good.
Right.
Maybe check with them. So, even if somebody can't hire me, I refer out to, somebody that I know is trustworthy. That way I know if they're not coming to me, hopefully they do go to somebody else that they can trust and is going to, pull through for them for their wedding day. So
absolutely. I do the same thing, just because I want to refer people that, we share the same values, right? I don't want to refer anyone that I don't even know. Yeah. And then they have a bad experience, and then they look back, oh, Mike's the one that referred. No, I don't want that. And that's always been my prerogative, is always helping clients, regardless if they don't choose me to, because at the end of the day, it's still a wedding, and it's, a very special day for them. So let's get back to you though. So after that incident, were you still working, or how did you transition to wedding photography?
Yeah, at the time I was still working a corporate job. I was part-time for about 10 years. I was part-time and was just working weddings. Eventually started going into family photos and stuff like that. Cause my friends at the time were like, okay, I know you do weddings, but can you take our family photos too? And I'm like, sure. Yeah.
Right.
And then I just started shooting everything at that point. It was just fun for me. And was working my corporate job, and I was like, yeah, when I hit 5 years, I'm going to quit and just go full time. And then I was getting paid more money at my corporate job. So I stayed there. And then once I was like, okay, I'm going to hit 10 years and then I'm going to go full time with my business. Hit 10 years, I was making even more money. And I was like, man, it's so hard to quit.
It is
a steady paycheck.
It is
for, your own business where you have to hustle. You have to bring in your own money and your own clients. It was really scary. So my husband and I decided, when we have kids, then we'll go full time. then I'll go full time. But at the time we were having fertility issues. So it was like, it was taking a while for us to have kids. So I just kept working.
Got it.
And then in 2004 or 2014, we did IVF, had our daughter in 2015. And that's when I went full time.
Oh, awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's kind of about the same time I started. Well, that's kind of when I really I'm going to go all in to wedding photography, but I was still working. I was in the same kind of boat as you, because like every 2-3 years, I got a different job in the career field and I started making more money.
Yeah.
I was like, man, if I quit, I'm not going to have a paycheck every 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and that paycheck was going to pay for new equipment. And that's what kind of kept me going with my day job is like, okay, this is funding my photography business. So I'm just going to keep going with it.
That's awesome. So when you decided that you were going to quit, were you pregnant at the time, or were you?
Yes.
Or did you have your daughter and then you quit, or?
I was still pregnant at the time.
Okay.
And we were talking about it. She ended up coming 2 months early. So that kind of sped our decision making up a little. And we were looking for a house at the time. And so we were like, okay, am I going to keep working a corporate job? Or are we going to get a bigger house? Or are you going to go full time and quit? And we're going to kind of get a smaller house so it's more affordable on one income. And yeah, we finally decided, okay, I'm going to stay home. I'm just going to do photography. And at the time I had a good clientele base, but it was still scary because I'm like, what if it stops? You know, what if something happens? What if, being a mom or a parent is really hard and I can't work as much? So yeah, we shifted the area that we were going to live in, got a little bit smaller house than we planned. And it worked out, like I didn't lose business. I actually gained more because of our infertility. There were certain shoots that I wouldn't take.
Got it.
Like I didn't want to do maternity. I didn't want to do newborns. It was just too difficult for my heart.
Right.
And then after having our daughter, my heart was just opened up to maternity. And because my daughter came 2 months early, I didn't get my maternity shoot, which broke my heart.
Got it.
I looked forward to that for so long. So that ended up opening up my portfolio to shooting maternity photos. So it ended up just opening up my world up to more of the motherhood and parents and all that stuff.
That's awesome. How did you feel when you really decided, you know what, I'm going to quit my job? And then now like how does it feel not having like a boss telling you what to do?
Well, at first I was scared.
Really? It's
scary deciding that you're going to go all in on your business. Like before, when you have a safety net, it's a little bit easier to, be a photographer and you have your day job and stuff like that. And then once we finally decided, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I really have to be all in. I really have to believe in myself. Right. And at the time, what I didn't really realize is that imposter syndrome that everybody talks about now, And so like there's a term that's put to it. And it's like, at the time, I really had to believe in myself, which is really scary. You rely on yourself. You don't have a boss telling you what to do. Get this done. Like now it's nice not having a boss, but at the same time, it's really hard because you have to make your own schedule. You have this work-life balance. It's really hard. I mean, I don't know if that really exists because it's like, you kind of wing it every day or every week or every month. It changes. Right. So at first it's really scary, but you really have to keep believing in yourself, kind of doubling down on your decisions and just keep going with it.
Yeah. I felt the same way. because when I was still working a full-time job, you know, I was still doing weddings on the weekends. But when I sometimes tell people, oh yeah, I'm a wedding photographer, like I just didn't feel confident because I was like, are they gonna find out I still work a full-time job? Like, you know, when I have consultations, how are they gonna how are my clients gonna feel knowing that I'm not full-time? So I always kind of like put that as a secret. And so that's kind of the way I felt when I was still, you know, working a full-time job. But then when I quit, I was like, man, there's nothing else to go back on. You know, I'm just going to tell everybody, right? I'm going to open up to Facebook. So I really started believing more in myself that I can do this. And I mean, for you, it's inspiring because you just had a baby. So like, how was that first year? Because I mean, like, were you taking care of your daughter and then like doing consultations, like, while you're holding your baby? Like, how was that?
Yeah, well, I gotta say, my husband is amazing. He is definitely my biggest fan, which has really, really helped keep me going. Because there's been times where I could have just been like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that's enough work in itself. But it's true. Like, at first, I would tell people like, yeah, I'm a photographer on the side, you know, like I wasn't confident when I would say it either. And after I had my daughter and I really had to go all in with it, I had to believe in myself. And at that same time, I guess I wasn't a huge fan of my own work. Like, I was doing photography because it was fun. Like, I wanted to be, you know, put out quality work, be a good photographer, somebody that people trust and loved and knew, you know, like I wanted to be people's friends, which I know some people in the industry don't like that. Like, you can't be friends with all your clients. And I'm like, bet, let me show you. And, cause to me, like, I started off shooting friends and family. So like going to weddings, I was very personable with everybody. I was hugging everybody, you know, and I think that's how I am with my clients. Like, I want them to know me. I want them to be comfortable with their photographer on their wedding day. I want to blend in with their friends and family. So it was just like, I don't know. I wanted to be that person to all of my clients.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm kind of going blank again.
No worries. So in terms of like, you know, like you said, you were not 100% confident and not believing what your abilities are. I think sometimes, even for me, because I would look at other people's work, I'm like, man, like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, there was a point for me, I was like, I don't know if I'm that good, like, you know, that talented. So how did you feel like, were you looking at other people's work when you were?
Okay. Yeah. So that's where I was going. So at the time, like, maybe I was just outgrowing the work that I was doing because I would deliver photos and I'm like, man, I hope they like it. Like, I wasn't fully in love with my work, but then like my husband would look at it and he's like, no, that's really good. Like, why are you worried? But then at the time, like, kind of the moody photography was coming out at the time. And so this was like 2015, 16, 17, like my style started to change a little. I started following more moody photographers and really liking that. So then of course, like the work I was putting out, I was like, I don't really like this.
Yeah.
Like, and then I didn't believe in myself because I wasn't a fan of my own work.
Got it.
So then I kind of switched. I upgraded my equipment. I started doing like the presets and the moody and changing things around. And I was finally a fan of my own work.
Interesting.
Like, and now I'm constantly evolving to make sure that I love the work I'm putting out. Like, there's trends that come and go and I'll try some stuff and other stuff. I'm like, I don't like that, so I'm not going to do that.
Right.
So I'm just constantly trying to make myself proud and love my work, because I know ultimately that makes me confident in myself. And that definitely shows, like when you have a consultation and you're talking to clients, you know, if I'm getting excited about my work, that gets them excited. Like I'm not going to, you know, be excited about something I'm not a fan of.
Exactly.
So if I'm constantly a fan of my own work, then my clients feel that. So I'm just constantly trying to evolve and just love what I'm putting out.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on, you know, believing in your work. Because like you said, if you're not confident in the work you put out, when you talk to clientele or, you know, even like family or friends, like, really? Like, you know, they're not going to believe in you if you're lacking that confidence. But yeah, like I 100% agree, because if you really believe in what you do and you have that call with the client, they're like, oh, she's super passionate. Michelle's, you know, she loves what she does, and it comes out. They'll like, it's almost like that feeling they get from you, right? It's infectious.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like my mom used to always tell me when I would talk to her on the phone, she's like, I can hear your smile.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
And that's what I want my clients to feel. I think anybody, any photographers, any business, when you go into it, like you should believe in it, be all in and be passionate, like whatever it is, you know, even if it's like, one of my cleaning friends, she has a cleaning business and she gets so excited about cleaning and like just transforming a place into this comfortable, clean, smells good, like peaceful place again, you know? And she's so passionate about it that I'm like, if I'm going to hire her, I'm going to refer her to other people, you know, because she's so passionate about it. Like, so whatever it is, you got to be passionate about it. You got to be a fan of your own work.
Exactly.
Because your clients are definitely going to feel that. And they're going to have more confidence in hiring you.
That's awesome. Did a little bit of that negative experience that you had with that company come into play when you started like trying to build that client experience for your clientele?
Yes. Because definitely a big base of my company and client experience is trust. So I want them to trust me. I send them my contract and I'm like, you know what? Go over the contract. Ask me any questions before you sign. Like, I don't want you to feel like you're tricked or duped or locked into a contract that you don't understand. So I definitely love that trust. You know, my Instagram is, you know, has years and years of, you know, history that people can go on there and see. Like, I've been doing this for a while. You know, you can go on, check my reviews and stuff like that. Like, I really want people to know that they're hiring a real person that they can trust. I have a family. I'm not going to go run off into Never Never Land and they're never going to see me or their photos again. So it definitely has made the core of my business trust.
That's amazing. Do you ever find yourself sometimes on a client consultation wanting to share that story? Or do you ever kind of just mention it here and there? Or what's kind of your thought process?
I do sometimes.
Okay.
I don't always, which I know a lot of people like on social media probably haven't even heard that story.
Yeah.
Some have. And like some people, they'll come back and say, oh, I can't afford you or whatever. Like, we decided to go in a different direction. And sometimes I feel like I'm compelled to like follow up and say, okay, here's some photographers because I just want to make sure that you're taken care of, even if it's not by me.
Right.
Because ultimately, even if I'm not their photographer, I want them to have good photos. Yeah. Like, because for one, I'm a huge fan of photography and videography. Huge fan. So even if I'm not getting paid myself to take the photos, I still want people to have amazing photos. I want them to have an amazing wedding day. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I do wonder, like, when somebody tells me like, oh, we decided to go in a different direction, I'll respond back and I'm like, okay, like, I'm so glad you found somebody else that you love. I hope you have an amazing wedding day, take it all in, take a moment after everything, so you have a private moment with you and your partner and all this stuff. And so sometimes I do wonder, like, do they think I'm like blowing smoke? But like, if people really met me, they would know, like, no, I'm just so happy.
Right.
That people are getting married and they found a photographer that they love, even if it's not me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good, interesting point. So when they tell you that they are going in a different direction, do you ever ask them, like, was it because of my service, my prices, my style? Like, do you ever ask that question?
I don't so much anymore. I did early on in the beginning. Maybe like 5 years ago, I started asking. I did a workshop with a company. They're called Hustle and Flow.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And I love them. I learned so much from them. They're a big part of why I got like so much more confidence in my own work, because they taught it, like, you have to be your one of your biggest fans. You have to, your client's going to feel that. So, they taught us, you have to love your work, be there for your clients, have confidence in your work and all that stuff. So,
yeah, no worry. I think one of the biggest obstacles, I think, when you're starting a wedding photography business, right, is the sales portion. And sometimes when you try to sell yourself, sometimes it's, even for me, when my first year, I was like, man, do I sound like a used car salesman? Like, you know what I mean? So like, I did kind of ask that question whenever they told me. And I'm glad they told me that they're going to move into a different direction, because at least it gives me an idea. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not doing something right. So I would ask that question. But sometimes it was kind of vague. That would, they would just tell me, it's just a style, right? Okay, well, there's so many styles out there. So I get it. I mean, if they really wanted me, then of course they'll let me know. But in terms of like your business from that point, like from 2015 and on, did you have any obstacles? Like I know, besides of course being a mom, and now you're doing this full time, was there anything that was really difficult for you, like in terms of business?
I would say, and it's still an obstacle for me, I think, is website. Everybody says like the most important thing is having a website, and I don't have one. Like, I think because I've been doing it for so long, like before websites existed, before the internet, like when I first started, I think people, like normal people, were barely starting to get computers at home. Like I had one of those computers that was like see-through.
Yeah, right.
Like big one. And, we looked for things in the penny saver and the newspaper, referrals, from other clients, from friends and family. So like, even still to this day, like, getting referrals from clients and friends, family is still probably like my number one, business. And then Instagram. Right. But I never needed a website to get clients. And now as time has evolved and technology's evolved, and so many people are putting so much stock in having a website means you're legit. And I'm like, well, what does that mean for me? I've been doing this longer than most of the people I know in my industry, and I don't have one. Like, I've had one here and there. Got it. And then a couple years ago, I paid a design. Well, right before the pandemic, I had hired someone to do my website, and it just I really hate that process. Like I feel bad saying that. I hate the process of doing a website and describing myself. Like it seems really pitchy, really corny, I guess. Yeah. But I mean, I am that typical corny photographer at the same time also. Like, I want to be your friend. Like I love photos.
Absolutely.
I love love. Yeah. That totally is me. Mm-hmm. But when I see it on a website, it just seems corny, too good to be true or whatever. So it's been a really tough process, jumping on the, having your website and all that stuff. So I think for me, that's been my biggest crutch in all this business stuff is just getting a website up that I love.
Got it.
I can feel good with. But I mean, still, like, I'm still busy. Trust is still my number one thing. People can go onto my Facebook, my Instagram, and see that I've been doing this for a long time. I have happy clients. Yeah. My personal page is public also. So if somebody wants to go and creep my page, they can see that I have a family. I'm very loving and trustworthy. I'm the person who I am, on social media. So yeah, the website thing is, and a while ago, or at the Hustle and Flow workshop, they had talked about, the whole Toys R Us thing. Mm-hmm. And they had said something about, you have to, or them, maybe it was Gary Vee.
Oh, was it Gary Vee?
Said you have to, you got to evolve or die.
Yeah.
And that was the time that Toys R Us was kind of crashing because they didn't want to evolve to this new technology and, selling on Amazon or online or doing all this stuff, like they had their book that they sent out. But they didn't really evolve into this new big technology wave that, everything's technology now. So now I'm finally, hopping on to that, I really need to get my website done. But I mean, for me, it's still just optics. And I hate that I need one.
Right. Yeah.
To validate my legitness or that I'm trustworthy.
Yeah.
But, everybody says you need a website. So
yes, it's very interesting because I've had a website for many years. Even like in 2004, I started building like on WordPress. So I'm kind of familiar like from like early on with different websites. But I think when social media came aboard, like especially Instagram, I remember when I think I was in Japan and Instagram went live. I'm like, oh my, this is like the new platform for photographers, like, or even just social media. And now like I've met so many people like that have businesses and they have Instagram and they don't have a website. It's like, it's like shocking, because like we of course we hear it all the time. And I kind of promote having a website if you are trying to do SEO and trying to push ads. But when I first started, I didn't pay for any ads. And people think I'm successful because I do a lot of ads now, but not necessarily. Like, it was just through Instagram and just hustle. But yeah, like I think sometimes a website, like you were saying, like it could, I guess, depending on the clientele that you have, right? And if you are more into like just being personable, like it comes out when you have the consultation. They don't even care about the website.
Yeah. Because the website to me, it's just so stagnant.
Yeah.
Like and I think that's for me, like every time I would submit something to my web designer, I'm like, and then she would ask for something else. And I'm like, okay, well, like I want to change this now because I didn't like what I gave you before.
Right.
And it's just like, it's constantly changing.
Yep.
So for me, like a website it's just too stagnant for me. But like, I know I need one, but that's why I like social media. I like Instagram.
Yeah.
Still trying to hop on the TikTok thing. But Instagram, it's instant, like you get updates, you have a wedding, a shoot, like you can post the photos that you just did right away, So I like Instagram. To me, it's more up to date. So like that's like a living website to me. So I'm like, why do I need a stagnant web page? You know, I know I need one, but it's still hard for me to grasp because I started this when websites didn't even exist. I didn't need it. And so like part of me says I still don't need it, but I know I'm probably missing out on a lot of clients who put a lot of stock in having a website. So I'm like, okay, let me just get that up and out there.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, I've switched to 4 different sites now. Yeah, it's insane. Just because I keep trying to evolve also on that aspect. But yeah, like for me, like I'm more active on Instagram because I just like the fact like I can share whatever comes from my mind, and I go live sometimes. You know, share your stories, and I think. And I'll give you an example. I had a client, I think that was like a few months back, that had called me. She was inquiring about my services, and eventually she booked me. And I asked like, what? You know, I always ask the questions like, oh, how did you find me? And she found me through Instagram. And she told me that the reason she went with me, of course, like, you know, she found me because through some of my reels. And like I loved other people's work. But when I looked at in their Instagram, like this one photographer wasn't active and he hadn't posted in like 4 months. I'm like, okay. Like it's harsh to say, but yeah, like that's a long time to not post. Yeah. Something simple. You know?
Yeah. So for me, it's like, I guess, you know, in our industry, like now they say a website is important, but when I go to hire somebody or like, I want to see what their social media looks like. I go to their Instagram. If they're not active, I'm correct. Like, what are they doing?
Exactly.
Is it really them? Like, I want to see what they're doing now. Yeah. Like I see what you had on your website last year. But I want to see what you're doing now. Like I want to see a story. I want to hear your voice. Yeah. I want to see how you laugh. Like I much more want to be invested in the person I'm hiring, not just like a web page with, you know, a bunch of words and pictures. Like I want to see more of the person. So I think that's why I love Instagrams, because like people can see me, they can, you know, hear my voice, you know, sometimes I'll post random like weird things. So I feel like they get, you know, more up-to-date active stuff. Yeah. They can learn and get to know me better on there.
Yeah, 100% agree. Even when I'm looking for any service, like I want to see your face. Like I want to see who's behind the business. Yeah. And then, you know, sometimes it's okay. Like if people don't want to show their face, but I think it just makes things more personable. I think especially in the service industry, like I had a conversation with Joanne. She's a hair and makeup artist. And for us photographers and hair and, you know, makeup artists, it's like very visual. Like people want to see like those before and afters. They want to see like your work because that's what we do. Yeah. I mean, we show art, right? So like if you don't have an Instagram in 2023, I don't know where you came from. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Where are you? I mean, at least that is easy. Like you just go, you know, and you're already taking pictures or video, like just post it up there. Yeah. Yeah. Like I always wonder what people are doing when they're not posting on Instagram. I mean, like for months, like where are you?
Yeah. And I, you know, I have a different mindset for social media because I come from a business background. I have a degree in business management. And I remember because I used to work for a newspaper when I was in college, and I would knock on doors. And this was like Ventura County Star. And I would sell the newspaper. And that's how people would advertise, right? Now, you know, now we have social media. You don't have to pay a dime, technically, unless you want to pay for ads, but it's totally free. Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, right? All those platforms are free and you don't have to pay for anything. And you can do some amazing stuff on there. But I think people are still having like a mindset block, where they think it's like, okay, you know, it's so hard to do. I feel like it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Well, it could be like me and websites.
Yeah, it could be you. Yeah, I know some people just have.
I'm kind of like anti-website, but I'm very much, Instagram. So I guess there's people who are the same way. They have, a banging website, but a very, stagnant social media.
Yeah. Maybe it's the fear of like you were saying, some people fear what people are if they're gonna criticize them, right? Or it's not good enough. And because then you compare yourself to other photographers that have amazing Instagram accounts where they already have 10,000 followers or 100,000. And it's like, you're starting, especially I think for like, if you're starting out, like you got to start somewhere, unless you're, a Kardashian or something.
Yeah.
You already have 1 million followers, but yeah, like I think a lot of people just don't, they just don't accept it. Like I do meet some business owners, but I don't think it's that hard. I mean, you just and I think now with even the algorithm now with Instagram, I think if it's even more raw, that it does better.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever kind of start noticing like the reels. If it's like, I've seen reels from like behind the scenes type of reels for weddings where it's just their phone and it's not even like, it's just like panning left and right. It's super simple. And it's gone like viral. Like, I'm like, what? And I'm doing like talking head with my camera, trying to be funny and it doesn't work. So.
I know reels are so, I don't know. Instagram's algorithm period is a huge eyesore for me. Like it's ever changing,
right?
And it's hard to catch on to it before they change it again. But I don't know. They're trying really hard to keep up with TikTok. Now they got rid of the Reels bonuses.
Yeah, I was using that a couple times.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get very much from it. None of my stuff really went viral. And like it's hard to, I don't know. It just seems very random.
Yeah. It's all good.
It seems very random, like when people go viral. I know some people work really hard, but then you hear like, yeah, I just recorded this like 2 seconds and like it went viral. I'm like, how did you do that?
Exactly.
But I don't know. It's really hard. And I think the optics of how everything looks, I think that's why some people end up buying followers and stuff like that. Because it's just hard.
Yeah.
And that's also a big gripe for me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
A pet peeve. People who buy followers. It's like.
And I know some people that actually have 20,000 and I know it's all fake.
Yeah.
It's fake followers.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into marketing a little bit. So in terms of like your marketing strategy now, do you still just do social media? Do you do any like bridal shows or anything like that?
No, I don't. I don't do like.
I gotta let her out.
I don't do bridal shows. I might be doing a like open house later this year, but no, it's mainly just social media.
Sorry, we have. What's your name
puppies.
again?
Ginger.
Ginger's over here
Ginger.
sniffing.
I know my dog had to lock her up. She loves people, so it's like, but yeah, right now it's still word of mouth.
Yeah.
Instagram, which is why I'm still trying to like, be consistent on Instagram and post and show my face and be on there and stuff like that. I told myself I wouldn't boost posts and do ads on Instagram and Facebook, because I feel like it doesn't do much. But I think I've done a couple this year, which really didn't. I don't think they do anything, but part of me always feels like, oh, maybe, if I change my analytics around and look at this, maybe this ad will do better. But I still haven't gotten a hang of, a good ad. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's just organic on Instagram.
Yeah.
Clients referring me. My clients are really good about tagging me, which is
awesome.
really nice.
Yeah.
And sharing my work. So Instagram and client referrals is still my best advertising.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think for people that's listening, like, I think in the wedding photography business, I think referrals are still like, even for me too, is like number one. Cause I'm sure like your conversion rate's pretty high when someone refers you, right? Cause they whoever refers you is a trustworthy person.
Yeah. And that's why I tried to refer people that I know.
Right.
Because I'm like, if you were going to hire me and you couldn't, like, here's people that I love and trust. And, somehow I give people that have a similar style to me or different.
Right.
Because I know not everybody like sticks to a certain style. Because like that word of mouth to me, and I think for a lot of other people, like, has a lot of stock in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And and I tell a lot of like the younger photographers, like, you don't technically have to pay for ads. You just got to build up that portfolio of work and really just put yourself out there. I think that's like the hardest part for a lot of people, like what we talked about, believing in yourself, telling the world that you are now a wedding photographer.
Yes.
Right.
Being confident. And like, I think that was a big thing you touched on too, is like, you would tell people like, yeah, I'm a photographer, at when you start saying, yes, I'm a wedding photographer, I'm a maternity photographer, I'm a newborn photographer. When you're confident in saying it, automatically people are like, oh, okay, I'm going to take you more serious then. Yeah.
Cause there's a couple times, and that's when I first started out, the reason why I wasn't as confident, because I would tell people and then like they would tell them, oh, you're a wedding photographer? Man, that must be really hard. Or like, man, or I would speak to other photographers. I'm like, oh, I don't do that. That's like, I do this, the other photography niche, and they kind of put down wedding photography. And so that kind of like hurt my ego a little bit. And so like I was kind of like, it took me a while to really just be super confident. But yeah, like I as long as you know that this is what you're going to do and you're going all in, things are, I think, going to go up and up for a lot of like photographers. Right. And it'll show in your work, it'll show in everything that you do, client consultations, working with other vendors. And so now let's talk about like, now you're in this position, right? That you've been doing this so long. And it's amazing that you've been, I mean, what is it? Over 17 years now. And you're still going strong.
And I'm only 30. No,
wow. You went back in time. So what, like when you look back, right? Maybe in 2015, like when you look back at your younger self, what would you say to young Michelle that you should have done back then?
Oh my gosh. Probably definitely believing in myself a lot more. Because I think it started off as a hobby. And part of me didn't want to lose the passion about, that excitement about a hobby, because everybody would say like, oh, once you turn it into a business, now it becomes work. It's not going to be fun.
Yeah,
you lose that passion for it. So I think for a long time, me not wanting to officially say, oh, I'm a wedding photographer, I'm a professional photographer, I think in the back of my head, I was trying to keep it as a hobby-ish.
Got it.
So I didn't lose that passion. But I don't know, at some point it's still my hobby. Like I still love doing this. And my husband hates it, but I still do a lot of shoots for free. It keeps that passion going, which is why I like doing, I give away shoots to cancer patients, to people battling cancer or treatment or anything like that. So that definitely fuels that passion. I do giveaways because that's
awesome.
I don't know. I love giving stuff away. That's
awesome.
That's my love language.
Yeah. Giving back. Yeah.
Giving back, helping people.
Yeah.
So doing that, like that keeps the passion, the hobby going. I still do hobby stuff. and then I have my work. So
that's awesome. I know we were talking off air, a minute ago about now you're in this position that you have so much experience and knowledge that sometimes photographers contact you and ask you questions. How do you feel about that when people look up to you now?
Oh my God, I love it. I don't know. I mean, I guess it definitely is a boost to my confidence.
Yeah.
But something I heard a while back, I forget who it was, but a part of your legacy in your business is passing that on to somebody else.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody newbie photographers, I say newbie, whenever newbie photographers ask me questions, I love it.
Yeah.
Because I remember very vividly, I was at that point, reaching out to photographers, which at the time it was way more difficult.
Right.
You had to know somebody who was a photographer.
Because you just can't go on social media and find photographers.
we again, I started back in film and we didn't have websites, anything like that. So when I first started, I was just taking pictures of everything, cars, people, dogs, animals. And so you try to find your inspiration and your training. We didn't have YouTube, university. So I got my inspiration and training from anywhere. And then once social media came, I found a photographer through a friend of mine. Her name's Jane Kaysen. I still remember her. She was the first mentor that I had. She helped me so much. And I remember asking her, she asked me what's your biggest issue with photography? I was like, the lighting, how do I figure that out? And she kind of laughed and she's like, okay, that's forever going to be your issue, with photography.
Right.
And now at being experienced, I know lighting, it's always changing. You always have to have that at the top of your head.
Right.
So, and then I found Cami June. She was one of the first photographers I found on Instagram. Met her, went to her workshop. She helped me so much. So I think having the confidence enough to reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
Just do it. Even if they turn you down or they don't want to answer your questions, whatever, just keep reaching out to people because you're going to find somebody like me.
Exactly. Yep.
I just freely give the information away because I remember how hard it was.
Yep.
Being a new photographer, trying to learn and do stuff and trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
There's YouTube, but it's so overwhelming to find stuff on there. But when you can learn from an actual person, that's so awesome. But yeah, when people reach out, I love it. And I try to help them. I'm ask me questions anytime. And I think it was 2020, I wanted to hop into doing mentorships and one-on-ones and workshops or shadowing sessions and stuff to help these newbies get one-on-one. That's how I learned the best.
Yeah.
Is working directly with somebody, them showing me how to use my camera and use these settings in the setting that you're taking the shot and stuff like that. So that I think reaching out, just go for it. Just whoever, it could be a big, huge account. Sometimes they don't answer their Instagrams anyways, but just reach out. Just have the confidence and just throw yourself out there.
That's awesome. Are you I know it's sometimes, I don't want to say that it's competition sometimes, right? Because I feel the same way. I love giving back and teaching, new photographers that get into the business, and I'm always willing to help. But I know some photographers, even with here's an example. I had another podcast with a good friend of mine who reached out to another photographer, and she was just asking, "Hey, do you mind sharing that location?" And the photographer said, "Oh, I don't mind at all, but you're gonna have to pay $25 for that location."
Oh, I saw that. Or listened to that on your podcast.
Yeah.
That's a first for me too.
Yeah.
Never have I heard somebody like charging for a location.
Yeah.
That's wild. Like part of me thinks that person is kind of newbie in the industry. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's weird for somebody to charge.
Yeah. And it was a public location.
Yeah.
She eventually just paid for it, I think, because of like the location itself. And then I've also heard of like, let's say you're starting out and you want to gain some experience actually shooting, right? You want to maybe assist a wedding photographer or second shoot. And through my other photographer friends, they told me that they were reaching out to this one photographer who does a lot of like Middle Eastern weddings and stuff like that. And the photographer is like, "Yeah, you can shadow me, but you're going to have to pay me to shadow on the day." I'm like,
I know a lot of people get into the industry for money.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people are money driven in the industry. So I think you just have to follow the people that you maybe want to shadow and see if that's somebody you really want to learn from. Because there's a lot of people out there who are very experienced and they are willing to share all or some of their information for free. Some people do offer mentorships that you pay for,
right?
Shadowing sessions that you pay for, but there's a lot of free stuff out there. Like now, I think it's a lot easier for photographers to kind of make it, I guess, because you don't have, like, I didn't go to school for this.
Right.
I just learned myself. So there's way more information out there with social media and internet and everything. So there's YouTube. It's overwhelming, but there's so much information out there. Like even now, like when I have to edit something a certain way, I'm like, "Oh, how do I do this?" YouTube University, you watch 5 minutes and you're like, "Oh, okay, cool. I got it." So I don't know. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to help and kind of guide, this new generation of photographers, which I love. Like for me, that they're so motivating. Yeah. They really keep me on my toes because I consider myself kind of like an old, a very seasoned oldie or whatever. And it's when I see newbies come along and they're doing this new stuff and I'm just like, man, like I need to up my game. I need to keep up with them.
Yeah.
It's motivating in a competitive, non-jealous, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
For me, at least, like I'm competitive because I know it pushes me further.
Exactly.
And it's not, I'm totally community over competition.
Yeah.
But for me internally, like if there's some sort of, not competition, but if there's, motivation, like to keep me going, like I need that to like push me.
Yeah.
Like same thing with, like, I'm a sports person. So it's like, if there's competition, like that motivates me, that gets me going. So like when I see these new photographers, any kind of business, I follow a lot of vendors and stuff. When I see them doing new stuff, like with reels, I see them doing reels, I see them doing all this other stuff. Like it's motivating. It makes me want to evolve.
Right.
Because I'm like, I still want to keep doing this for a while. Yeah. So I need to evolve and, start doing stuff like that. So I love feeding into the new photographers and helping them however they need it, because that ultimately is going to keep good photographers going. Yep. Like I don't want it to be just an industry filled of people that are money driven.
Exactly.
Like I want it, people who want to help, they love photos, they love people. So if I can pass that, that passion onto other people, like that keeps me going too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. For me, part of the interesting and exciting thing about photography is meeting people and meeting new faces, and especially weddings. It's always fun for me, especially like when people start dancing. That's kind of like my thing. So like for you, I think like it doesn't really matter like the price, right? Because at the end of the day, like I love what I do. I'm sure you love what you do. So the passion just comes out. And then when I see people like putting new work out there, I'm like, man, how did you, like, I'm like, for me, I'm like kind of like trying to deconstruct, like, how did he do that? So then I try to do it myself because it keeps me going too. And I want to try different techniques. And so like, it's always exciting. I think it's always going to evolve with new technology, like, like AI now, like imagine, like, I mean, just the editing portion. Cause for me, like, I love shooting, but not as much of a fan editing.
Yeah.
So I love being on the day, but like editing, I was like, okay, I'll do it because I got to do it. It's my style. But I prefer to be on the day doing the actual work. But now, like the technology is amazing. Like you can send out a gallery and they can edit it for you. You know what I mean? There's resources.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know. Like every year I tell myself like I need to hire an editor because they can probably edit it in like a day. Yeah. But it's so hard because it's so hard to let go of that control, because it's like, it's your work, it's your look, it's your style, it's your name, that goes out there. So it's really hard to trust this new technology out there and stuff like that. But oh man, I feed off of the excitement of the day, of the shoot, of the wedding, especially the reception.
Yeah, that's where it gets fun.
The dancing. I love it. And I think that's why till this day I love weddings, because everybody's excited. Families some are meeting each other for the first time, and that's kind of exciting in itself. Nerve-wracking at times. But everybody's happy. People are getting married. It's a huge party after, the ceremony. And that's just so fun. Like I feed off of that energy. That's like, awesome. It's just, it's addicting, I guess, because it's like a party every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like people are inviting me to one of their biggest parties, and I love that.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. Let's say there's a new wedding photographer, and they're going to shoot their first wedding ever. Maybe they've shadowed you, hypothetically, right? What advice would you give that photographer if it's their first time, like leading a wedding?
Definitely make sure your timeline is good. Definitely have a good timeline. My timelines are very detailed. I like, if there's a wedding planner, I'll get theirs, and then I will retype it for myself with my photo timeline built into it. That way I go through the whole day before it even happens, on the timeline. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this and do this and do this. And we have a little buffer time here. So if something goes wrong or something's, falling behind, then you kind of already have like a plan B and plan C. And okay, we have an extra 10 minutes here. So then if we can't do portraits here, we're going to fit them in over here. So I think having a real detailed timeline going through the day before it actually happens, you're more prepared if something doesn't go to plan. Right. Like don't rely on the timeline, but know it well enough and know where you have buffers and gaps in time, or just know the day. That way you can rearrange things last minute if you have to, because wedding days they don't always go to plan. I mean, very few, very, very few stay on time per the timeline. Yeah. Everything happens the way it's supposed to. And I think that's where some photographers, they kind of slip up or get, caught up or whatever. when the timeline goes, awry and you're just like, oh, what am I going to do? Where do I fit this in? We only have, 15 minutes for portraits now, And so having a really good timeline and having your plan B's and C's in place and knowing where you can move things around is a big deal. Because the times where I didn't, prepare my timeline good enough, or I wasn't mentally preparing for a wedding, that day, or maybe I thought, this day is going to go really easy. I don't need a detailed timeline. And then things go, really behind. And then I'm the one struggling to what am I going to do? I have a huge family and I still need to do couples portraits and stuff like that. Like having your plan B's and C's in place really helps. And I think as a new photographer, definitely you should have shadowed or second shot several weddings before you do your own as a lead, because you want to see how that lead photographer, how they react. You, as a second photographer, you get a copy of the timeline too. When things don't go as planned, and then you see what the lead photographer has done. So definitely get some weddings under your belt as a second or third shooter, or even just as a non-shooting assistant. Yep. Because even as a non-shooting assistant, you can really study more than when you're actually having to produce photos. Because I know a lot of people don't want to be a non-shooting assistant when they're trying to be a photographer. Yeah. But when you're a newbie and you're trying to learn, I think being a non-shooting assistant is really good because you don't have to worry about taking the photo. You're worried about learning from that lead photographer. How do they run the day? Exactly. Because most of the time, there's a wedding planner or a coordinator running the day, but a lot of it depends on photos. We can't move throughout the day without, the photos being done. You can't just be like, oh, well, we can't do this. No, the photos have to get done. Yeah. And a lot of the time, if you're running out of time, the thing that gets sacrificed is photos. Exactly. You have less time for it. So when you're a non-shooting assistant, I think it's great because you can just study how the main photographer leads the day. Yeah. How they do everything. Yeah. How their plan B, because usually the lead, when things go wrong, I'm with my second photographer and I'm like, okay, we need to do this. Right. I need you to go over here now instead and shoot this or that or whatever, get the details, or go run to the ceremony real quick, get those details before the guests come. So, where I'm in communication with my second photographer all the time, especially when the timeline goes wonky. Exactly. So, definitely, obviously get your second, third, non-shooting assistant time in to study how the main photographer works. But then when you do have your own wedding, definitely have a really, really good timeline. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, because I started just going straight in and second shooting for other photographers, but there was a couple times where I just assisted and I was like, there's less pressure, right, for me to produce. So I just basically just watched how the lead photographer was doing things, because we know every wedding is different. Every timeline is different. Sometimes you have a first look, sometimes you don't. Sometimes people are late. Sometimes you don't have all the family at the family photo session. So okay, you got to do it after, you get the reception. I mean, there's so many scenarios. And one thing I learned was being very flexible, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to adapt throughout the day, because things may have to change, flip. Yeah. So, okay, now I got to figure out where I'm going to shoot the family. So, or I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to do the romantic. So it's sometimes you got to be super adaptable to any situation that comes arise. So, would you always recommend that any new photographer that starts, in the wedding photography industry should really assist, or should they just
maybe do some, because I feel that now, like looking back, I feel like actually starting as a family photographer could actually be very beneficial.
Yeah.
Because you have the ability to interact with bigger groups and dealing with kids sometimes, right? And being able to like direct the parents, and then also, lighting situations. So what's your approach when someone reaches out to you, like, where should I start if I'm just kind of really fresh into photography?
Fresh into photography, period.
Yeah, like let's say they've done it as a hobby, but now they really want to, like, start a business. And of course they want to get into the weddings, but they haven't done a wedding at all.
Definitely. That's when I would start reaching out to wedding photographers as a non-shooting assistant. Like if you are a new photographer, but you want to get into weddings, so you're still new.
Yeah.
Definitely do some non-shooting assistant jobs for weddings. And in the meantime, family photos is a really good one, because every wedding you do family photo shoots.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's really big, sometimes extended family photos, like huge, like, 20, 30 plus people. So, that would be a good place to start. Not shooting assistant, I think I know a lot of people don't want to not be paid for a full wedding day, but
because they want the portfolio, right?
Yeah, they want the portfolio. They want to show that they have, wedding photos. But I think learning how to run a wedding day is more important than taking the photo in the very beginning, because when things go wrong on a wedding day, like, you need to lean in on that experience on what to do, because everybody's going to be looking at the photographer of like, what are we going to do?
Yep.
Like the caterer says they need to serve dinner in 30 minutes and the ceremony just ended. I had one wedding where the wedding planner was like rushing me, and I'm like, we still had light.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, the caterer, the dinner is done. Like, they need to start serving the dinner. I'm like, why? Why is the caterer rushing, dinner, like serving time? Which now, I mean, I get that they want to serve it when it's ready.
Right.
But so like we had to rush through photos in 30 minutes when there was still light.
Yeah.
So it's like, then we went back into the reception. People started getting served dinner, and then I took the couple back out for photos after that. But it's definitely get some non-shooting wedding experience under your belt, because you have a lot of time to learn how to take a photo. In the meantime, you can be shooting family photos, shooting whatever, cars, like I'm a firm believer that you don't have to have a niche in the photography industry to be good.
Yep.
I don't know who said it a while ago, but I'm totally don't believe it, that you have to choose a niche to be successful. I think with photography, you should be good and versatile in your art. You should be able to take photos. If you're a wedding photographer, you have to be good at taking family photos too.
Yeah. 100% agree. I think with weddings, you got to be good everywhere.
Exactly.
Right. Product photography, shooting the cake, the details, everything. And then, candids, event photography. I believe that wedding photography involves everything.
Yeah.
You have to be very versatile in every situation, because you're dealing with different lighting situations, the timeline constraints. So many things. I think for me, that's why I get a rush, because I'm like a junkie a little bit. I love the feeling of being there and like figuring things out sometimes. And especially even with posing. So I kind of want to get into that today too, because I think you have very, very organic and natural photos that you put out there. So describe a little bit about your posing style to us.
My posing, I think since I've been doing it for so long, I still do very traditional style posing. because when people do albums and stuff, like that's usually what they'll put in the album is like the traditional classic. I don't want to say traditional, classic posing. But I'm very much a photographer of movement.
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm a huge fan of videography too.
Yeah.
I like my couples to move, and also people feel more awkward when they're just standing still. When they're in a do I have my arm the right way? Whatever. So like I really like to have my clients move naturally and then capture their movement that way. So it's kind of candid, but in a very prompted way. So I'll prompt them to do things.
Yeah.
So mine is kind of pose / prompt. That's how I do my weddings, my portrait sessions, everything. So, and I think, you know, if I want them to be, you know, laughing and hugging, I'm like, okay, just walk. And I say this, it sounds so stupid. I tell them, walk as if you guys are just canoodling, you know, walking in the mall. Which I know is maybe an older term. Like
people go to the mall still.
Yeah, exactly. People go to the mall still. But it's like, that's, you know, when you're just walking, you know, like that's what I want to capture. And I think people feel awkward when they're not doing things that are normal to them. So I try to prompt them to do stuff that feels natural. And then when they see the photos, they're like, oh, that was easy. And I'm like, yeah, because you're just being you.
Yeah.
Because I want to capture people as they are.
Exactly.
I definitely prompt them to do things that are maybe not normal, but it feels kind of normal to them because they're moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a huge
That's awesome.
lover of movement in my photography.
That's great advice. I think for anyone that's listening and is starting out, that's like a great way to capture the couples in a natural way, right? Because if you tell them exactly like, okay, you got to put your hand here, you got to put your face here. It's like, okay, am I doing it right? Like it's like too many directions. I think sometimes. Yeah. For people to understand and listen, but yeah, I do believe that we still have to get those traditional photos. Like, you know, I mean, we're still going to do it for family photos.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like. I'll prompt my couples. I'll tell them like, just, you know, kiss each other, and then I'll pose them in the natural movement they do. So like I'll have one couple, you know, they'll go up and kiss, and I'm like, okay, put your hand on his face and do it again.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like now the first photo is very kind of candid, like it's them. And then I'm like, okay, just put your hand here or do this. So then they do it. It doesn't feel awkward to them because they're just moving their hand.
Yeah.
But if I would have initially said, okay, turn, you know, put your hand here and then do this, it just feels very weird. Yeah. But when I tell them, okay, just, you know, kiss. And then I'm like, okay, move your hand here. Then it seems more natural, even though it's the pose I ultimately wanted to get.
Exactly. Yeah, I think keeping it simple. Yeah. And just telling, like, if you tell someone to kiss, they're going to kiss, right? In their own way. So, that's awesome. So the next thing I really want to talk about, go ahead.
My dog.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So Michelle's dog, she has an English bulldog. And
she is so cute because she's
barking
demands attention, and she's spooked by everything. Oh, so if it's windy outside, if it's raining, hail, she's amazed by the snow and the hail. She's like, "What is this?" And then we have like a little wash in the back of our house. So the sound when there's water going through, she's like, what is that? So she spooks. So she barks at everything.
No worries. It's a faint sound. So if you hear some barking, that's probably Michelle's dog, but it's all good. But yeah, I still have a few questions for you. I really want to pick your brain on this one. I know we had kind of a short conversation about misconceptions about the wedding photography industry. And since you've been doing it so long, was there anything that you think that maybe people misread about us as wedding photographers or have a misconception?
Oh my gosh. I guess the main thing people always misconstrue is that we charge more for weddings. Mm-hmm. I know that's like I charge the same across the board.
Got it.
So like my hourly rate is the same across the board. If
Got
you hire me for a wedding for, so many hours, when you divide it all out, that hourly rate is the same as what I charge for a family photo session. But I know some people do charge more, but there are things that go into a wedding that don't go into other events.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to have insurance to do family photos.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of people don't think about that, like, having a $1 or $2 million insurance policy that the venue requires. Like, I don't need that to take pictures at a park.
Exactly.
So, like, I think it's a misunderstood or just information that people just don't know about, that wedding photographers have to pay for to run a legit business. Because I don't want to say that people don't think photography is like a legit business, but like,
right.
We still have to pay taxes. We still have to pay for insurance and insure our equipment and day of insurance. Like there's a lot of incidentals and like back end stuff we have to pay for. And people don't think we have to include that in our price. So I think that's a big misconception, is that we charge more for weddings. But it's not just because.
Right.
So there's very valid reasons. Like we're covering our cost to shoot your wedding, plus our experience and our time, so. And I think that's always going to be a misconception with the wedding industry, is that we charge more. But it's like, what other time do you hire a photographer for, 6 to 10 hours?
And I really believe in this because, when you hire a wedding photographer, we're one of the vendors that, like, at the end of the day, the thing that you remember will be the photos. So it's like, we have a lot of pressure. Like for me, it's like, okay, I got to make sure I really capture what they want. So like that also is like, okay, we bring that value because we're the one that's capturing those moments, and they'll remember that for the rest of their lives. So I always take that in consideration when I have a client consultation. But yeah, I think a lot of people that maybe wedding brides and grooms, they don't really think about that. They just, they're just going to take photos, right? That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think couples, they focus on the hourly rate, so like they'll look at everything and they'll break it down like, man, that's $600 an hour, like that's ridiculous. But I mean, when you it's not just the time you're paying on the wedding day, it's the communication leading up, because we have to, consultation, talking with the couples on their plan for the day, writing up the timeline, talking with the planner. Then the wedding day comes.
Exactly.
Then you have all of that time that day. And then you have all the post-production afterwards, which is sometimes more than all the other time that you put in before the wedding.
Yeah.
So I think couples, and that's one thing I think that's nice about social media and stuff, is we can communicate that to them. And I'm not huge on educating people, like when they're inquiring with me, like this is why I charge this. But I think that's also why people should be following companies and people and vendors that they're going to hire. That way, once they get down to talking about price, they don't have to question why they're charging what they charge.
Yeah.
Most likely that photographer or vendor has already talked about why they charge what they charge.
Yeah. And
what they charge. So then when you go down to hiring your vendors, like you already know like about how much they're worth, that they're going to perform. I think everybody should know who they're hiring. Like that's why I think it boggles my mind when I get an inquiry from somebody who doesn't even follow me. I'm like, this is weird. Like, you don't even follow me. Like, do you know who I am? Do you know what I charge? Like, do you even like me as a person? So yeah, I mean, educating the client is is good, but I don't know. I think there's always going to be that misconception.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also too, I think with wedding photographers, right? And I have a lot of conversations with other photographers. Like, what's your take on like raising your prices? Because I think that's always something that is always talked about. And I know some educators out there like, oh, you got to raise your prices every year. Some like, oh, just a little bit depending on your market. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Like, when you raise your prices, like what do you keep in mind or consider?
I always consider like, what did I do in my business that provided more value for my client? Because I'm not going to be like, oh, okay, it's 2023, I'm going to raise my prices.
Right.
And didn't do anything differently. Like just raising prices just because it's a new year. I don't believe in doing it that way. For me, I mean, I'm always ABL, always be learning.
Gotcha.
I'm always trying to up my game, learn something new. Is there anything in my equipment that I need to upgrade or replace? For me, like website, like it costs money, you know, thousands of dollars to have a new website and stuff. Yep. I think for me, I've always looked to see what value I added in my company that translates to my client. And then that for me means that I need to raise my prices to cover that extra value that I'm giving them. So I think when people raise prices just because it's a new year, like, I mean, a lot of people do that, but I think for most of us, there's reasons behind it. Either you paid for a lot of training and workshops that year, so now you're offering a different experience to your client. You maybe started offering guides. For me, like last year, I upgraded my cameras.
Oh.
I went to mirrorless.
Oh, finally.
I know, finally. I know we were talking about it a while ago.
That, yep.
I ordered them, but it took 7 months to get.
You have the Z?
The
Which
Z9s.
One? Z9s, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Freaking Nikon.
You have the D. Which one?
The previously?
Yeah.
D300. D800, sorry.
800. Okay. Yeah, that's a big jump because when I switched, because I had the 5D Mark III, and I'm like, when the Canon R came, I'm like, holy smokes, I don't have to like recompose every time when I focus.
Yeah, so for me, like, so I upgraded my cameras, and my wedding prices didn't go up.
Got it.
But I did go up a little bit in my portrait sessions because for me, it kind of evens out. Like it was time for me to upgrade my cameras anyways.
Yeah.
But then I also added several dresses to my client closet
nice.
for my portrait sessions. So yeah. And then also with the recession and things. So like I take a lot of things into account when raising my prices. And then also seeing what my turnover rate is, like getting all these inquiries and I'm getting like 25% return, you know? So it's like, even some of my loyal clients are like, you know, skipping out on that second shoot that they normally do with me in a year. So it's like, some will do like Mother's Day and then family photos. Now they're saying, we're just going to do family photos in the fall. Like, so now like the recession is really playing a factor into how people are hiring photographers or hiring vendors or spending their money. So this past year, I didn't raise my prices too much. Mainly just charging a little extra for travel.
Yeah.
Because gas.
Absolutely. Gas is insane.
But yeah, I think, and me, when I raise my prices, I raise them because I have to, not just because it's the beginning of the year or anything like that. So like sometimes my prices will raise in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And I don't advertise it. Like I know a lot of people will advertise and say, hey, like my prices are going up, so book me before this date, you know? So for me, that seems like very salesy, like I'm going to get you type of thing, you know? Like, so when my prices go up, I don't announce it because I don't want anybody to feel any kind of pressure to hire me.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's going to hire me, I want it to be very natural, organic. I want it to feel right.
I think I get what you're saying. I think when anybody books me, or I'm sure books you, price is like secondary, right? Because they want you, the person behind the camera, not necessarily your work. Of course, work also matters, but at the end of the day, they want you and your personality. And I think some people kind of don't get that, and they're so focused on price because maybe they're starting out, they're not booking as many clients. So let me ask you this. So let's say you're starting out, this is your first year. Where would you recommend most photographers to start? Because I think pricing is very different, right? So what advice would you give a photographer? Like, what should they do in terms of how should they figure out pricing? Should they do some free sessions like you do, or what advice would you give them?
I mean, doing free sessions in the beginning definitely helped me because I was offering it for free. And so I feel like there was less expectation of what I was going to give them. And usually if it's free, there's less stress for me as a newbie in delivering something to them. Right. And my clients were very happy either way with what they received because they didn't pay for it. And I know, people are against doing shoots for free or for exposure or whatever, but I think starting out, that's where a lot of people can build their experience.
Right.
And not have upset customers because you're charging money and you don't even know what you're doing. But then as you start to charge money, I think it should be according to your experience.
Got it. Yeah.
What your cost of doing business is. Yep. And then as you, like how I raise my prices, if you do workshops, add to your client closet, upgrade equipment, then you would, slowly start increasing your price. Yeah. I know people in the industry are, they talk crap about, $100 photographer, they charge $100 for their shoots and everything like that. But I mean, like, that's what they should be charging. Yeah. Like if you're starting off, if you're a newbie, charge $75 or $100 to cover your cost for doing that. Yeah. Like you shouldn't be, starting off, you have your first camera, your first client and charge $300.
Yeah. Like I've never heard anyone like, who would ever say like, this is your first year and yeah, you should charge $1,000 for family sessions. Like you would never hear that because you're never going to book anybody.
Yeah. And people gripe about like, oh yeah, I'm losing clients to the $100 photographer. They're charging $100 for photo shoots. Yeah. And, they're ruining our industry, lowering, their prices. Their prices are so low. I think they're charging accordingly. Yeah. Like I charge how much I charge because of my experience, the value that I'm giving. Somebody new starting out should be charging accordingly also. Right. Like, and people that are going to pay me are not going to pay them. Exactly. Exactly. Like I can go buy, a $5 ice cream or whatever. But if I had $10, I'm going to go to, whatever fancy ice cream place and buy a $10 ice cream, even though they're selling $5 ice creams. Exactly. So for me, the newbies in the industry, which I don't know, maybe I'm just a really huge advocate for newbies. They're needed, like everybody gets their start somewhere. And you should be charging accordingly. Yeah, I 100% agree. Whatever you start at, I mean, eventually you'll start raising those prices as you get better and have more experience. So
Yeah, it's something interesting. And I just pulled up the stats last night because I had a live stream with some vendors, wedding vendors, and it really really shocked me. Like, so California specifically in 2022 was ranked number one in terms of number of weddings. So it was over 290,000 weddings in 2022.
Jeez.
In the United States in 2022, it was close to 3 million weddings. So that it divided into about 7,000 a day.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
yeah, there's plenty of clients to go around, you guys.
So that's why, like, I was like, okay, that even solidified what I believe in. It's like, there's so many clients out there. You just got to put yourself out there. You got to really, do some organic marketing, because you'll find your own clients. Like, you know what I mean? Not everybody's going to be the right client for you. So let me ask you this. So when you market yourself, like, how did you figure out who your ideal client is? Like, what was your thought process in that?
I never really had like an ideal type of client.
Okay.
My ideal client is somebody who likes me.
Yeah. That's a good
somebody
approach.
Who they value photography and they like me. Like, that's my ideal client.
That's good. Yeah.
Because I feel like if you like me and you like my photos, then you're gonna come back to me. Like, I want people like that. I don't want I love hoppers. I call them hoppers, like for people who hop from photographer to photographer.
Yeah. Yep.
I love them also.
Yeah.
But I love having clients who love and invest in me as a person and come back to me, because then I get to see their kids grow up. I get to take their couples photos, and then they get married, and then I take their maternity photos. To me, I've always tried to just be myself and just how I am. And I attract people who I would want to be friends with. And so, like, that's my ideal client, is people who I would want to be friends with.
That's awesome.
So it's like, if you like me, I like you, because I love people. And, you're going to keep me around. I love you. Like, we're going to take pictures and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So I think just being myself, it just attracts me people that I love.
Right.
My ideal client is the people that I just connect with and I click with.
That's interesting, because I know some photographers, they kind of put themselves in a boat, right? Like, oh, I'm a natural light photographer, or I only do non-traditional. I only do like very Christian type weddings. So do you take everybody? Like, I mean,
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And that's another thing, like, why I don't believe in like having a niche in the industry. Because when I first started out, like, I just loved taking photos. And I think the more things that I was really good at taking photos of just made me a better photographer. So I think people starting off, like, it's cool to have a niche when you're starting out.
Yeah.
So you can hone in and become an expert on that thing. And then I did that when I started out, and then I moved on to something else.
Got it.
Became an expert in that, and then moved on to something else, became an expert in that. Because I think being a photographer, like, you should know how to take pictures of everything if you're a photographer.
Right.
And then, like, as I've grown in my business, I've figured out what I like shooting, what feels good to me, like what, fuels my soul and everything. So, like, after I had my daughter, I started doing maternity photos. Loved that. Yeah. Then I started doing babies, and I'm like, wait, this is hard. This is really. Yeah. I thought,
I think that's one of the hardest. I've only done one, and it wasn't even like, because I've seen some amazing newborn photos where they have like the basket, and then like the. They're like tucked in. I'm like, how do they even do that? Yeah,
they're I call them baby whisperers, because I don't have that power. So that's one thing. Like, I did start getting into newborn photography. Like, after I had my daughter, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start perfecting this. Like, I need to get into this. And then I started getting into it and I was like, oh, wow, this is really hard. And I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
Like I took some good photos, but I was anxious every time I did a newborn newborn shoot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this baby can feel that I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Like, what if I put him in a position that they stop breathing?
Yeah.
Like, I was so nervous doing them. And so, like, if somebody hired me to do newborn, I could do it. Like, I did it enough that I took some pretty photos and I knew how to, pose the babies. And I shadowed a newborn photographer in LA.
Nice.
And, like, I know the gist of how to do it. It just, I'm not passionate about it. So I couldn't really get into it.
Right.
So I think once you get into like taking pictures of like everything you can, then I think honing in on a niche is cool, but also still knowing how to do everything, kind of like, I don't know, like if I'm hiring a tattoo artist, like I don't want them to only know how to do one thing.
Yep.
Like, I think being an expert in everything makes you better when you do decide to like niche down in a certain, thing.
And I think also because of the pandemic, it really opened my eyes. Everybody took a hit. And so I really started like, okay, I gotta try something else, like transition to something else. So I did a lot of the drive-by birthday party.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I did the little portrait things.
Oh, on the house.
Yeah. A lot of people had a pivot.
Yeah.
And I think and that's where I feel I leaned into my experience of knowing how to shoot everything is that weddings stopped.
Yeah.
Like, people were barely, getting married. If they were, it was very small elopements, whatever. But like people who were doing 50, 60 weddings a year, like if they only did weddings, that's all they knew how to do. Like their company had to pivot to do something else.
Exactly.
So for me, that's where I was like, yep, this is why I don't niche, because I was able to, I finished out doing the weddings that I had. Some of them pivoted to doing just elopements. And then I made it my money doing the little portraits, like the front porch photos and stuff like that. So, thank God for the 7,200 lenses and stuff like that. But yeah, like I think just being fully prepared and being as experienced as you can before you niche, it makes it a lot easier. It makes you more versatile, more, you can have a plan B and C, like on a wedding day, or, what if something happens and you have to really pivot your company. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. So, I mean, you've been doing this for so long. So, I mean, what keeps you motivated to keep doing this?
I still love it. I really love taking photos. Like if I always say this too, if I won the lotto and I didn't,
that was my next question.
Oh, really? If I won the lotto and I didn't have to charge for photos, I would still take photos for free.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure people would hate me for that. But I mean, I'm sure like I would pivot to probably just focusing on like charity work. Like I'm doing my Brave sessions now. Oh. So I'm doing free photo shoots for cancer patients, trying to raise awareness for childhood cancer.
That's awesome.
And I would do a lot more of that.
Yeah, I got to connect you with Wish Upon a Wedding. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, I'm sorry. Also, oh my God, I can't. Dream Foundation. Okay. I'll connect you with them because they do a lot of like special events for cancer patients. And I've done one with them and then I did one with Wishing Upon a Wedding. It's amazing.
Yeah, I did a couple Make-A-Wish events.
Okay.
But like I just shot their their like Make-A-Wish event in San Diego.
Oh, nice.
Where they were giving away stuff to like the people who participate in it. Like it was an actual like Make-A-Wish like recipient. But I connected with another charity who was doing like kind of like a Make-A-Wish event for a kid with cancer.
Yeah.
And that opened me up to like wanting to do a lot more of that. So, and then dealing with infertility, I'm an 11-year cancer survivor. Wow. That really makes me want to give back. So I also do free shoots for maternity shoots for couples with terminal pregnancies.
Oh my goodness.
So, because even if you know, that baby's not going to make it earthside.
Yeah.
Those photos are still worthy. You know, that baby's still worthy of having a maternity shoot. As hard as it is, you know, doing them, the people that I have done them for are like so thankful that they have them to look back on.
That's awesome.
Even if they don't have their baby in their arms. Yeah. So like I mean, just the love of photography and people. Like I love meeting new people.
Yeah.
And the longer I do this, the more people I'll meet, the more photos I get to take. And it's just fun. Yeah. And then all these little newbie photographers, like I see them and they're so passionate about it. And I'm like, yes. I always want to be like that, you know.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Was there anyone in your life over the years that really influenced you to become this type of photographer?
I don't know. Probably Cami June. So she was one of the first photographers that I ever went to a workshop, was one of hers. Yeah. And she is so personable. She's gives huge hugs. Yeah. You know, she's very animated and happy, and she shows all her emotions, and she gives away information so easily. Like she would help me all the time. And then that also made me want to go and then pay for a workshop for her, you know?
That's awesome.
And then I ended up hiring her to do our family photos. And she was just, you know, she took photos of us before we got pregnant, just couples photos, and then took pictures of us as a family. And she was so happy. And like, I don't know, like she was just very lovable, personal, animated, like felt like a friend, you know, like felt like a sister. Like, and I think that makes me want to give that feeling to my clients. You know, like I want my clients to know that like I'm excited that they're hiring me, that, you know, I'm thankful. Like them hiring me is keeping my dream going. So I know that's experiencing that from Cami. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I want my clients to feel what I felt. Right. So like that's how I am with my clients. That's awesome. Like I love giving hugs. I love seeing their kids. Like the biggest thing is like when their kids remember my name. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, they should remember my name.
Let me ask you this. Since you've been doing it for 17 years, has there been any clients that you did their wedding and then you also did their kids' wedding?
I don't know.
Or
no, not yet.
Not yet.
But I've taken family photos of a family for years, and I've taken their kids' wedding photos. Oh. So now they're adults.
Yeah, yeah.
And they are married and they have kids.
Got it. That's
so like now I have a family, the Orieros. We call them, one of them we call them Oreo. Because it's like Oreo, but with I. So the Orieros, I've taken pictures of them since their kids were really little. And then now, like graduation one photos. Of their kids is taller, like I think taller than them. taken family photos and then maternity photos of their kids.
Wow.
And then married,
Yeah.
maternity, and then now I'm taking pictures of their grandkids.
Wow.
So it's like, it's really, and like, that is like the ultimate for me.
That's awesome.
Is to like have clients that just know me.
Yeah.
And I know them, you know, like I know all their kids' names and their grandbabies now. And like for me, that's like the ultimate like
That's awesome.
feeling and like level of photography that I've always wanted to have. Is just like return clients.
Yeah, that connection you have with a family, and you see their kids grow up. I was like, whoa, I remember when you were a little baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so now it's like, it's crazy. And like, I don't feel older.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't care. Like I'm 41. Like I don't feel 41.
You do CrossFit, right?
No,
No.
I do weightlifting though.
Oh, okay. I thought you did CrossFit. But
No, I don't know. That looks too hard.
it's
for me.
intense. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. No, I lift weights.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I can do some deadlifts and stuff like that.
So besides photography, is there any other hobbies you do on the side?
No,
Just photography.
I bought a sewing machine.
Oh, okay.
I haven't even taken it out of the box yet, though.
Oh man.
I don't have time.
Got it. So
But yeah, like, and like I told myself, like, I need another hobby
yeah.
because it's just photography,
You should get into videos.
reading, you know, like I'll read.
Yeah.
I would love to get into videography,
Yeah.
but the editing totally intimidates me.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But you
'Cause
said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was like, I see a lot of, like, I visualize things like movement and stuff like that. Like, I created a video in my head for the Killers, one of the Killers song,
Oh,
Mr. Brightside.
okay.
So like before I saw their music video, I created a video in my head of how
You should go.
it go. Yeah, how it should go. And then they came out with the video, was like, has nothing remotely what I had in my head. But it's funny, when I hear their song, I play my video in my head.
Oh, interesting.
So, like, and then like on wedding days, when I see the videographers, like I'm just like, oh, when she spins in her dress and this, and I see them doing stuff and I'm like, that looks so fun. I bet that looks so good. I love videography. So like on a wedding day, like I buddy up with the videographers because I'm like, hey buddy, like, because I like, part of me really does want to do videography too, get into it, even if it's just like little snippets on like family photo sessions or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can give like a little video to somebody, because it's photos. I love photos. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But nothing compares to a video.
Yeah. I mean, if someone asked me, I think it was a vendor, because I do a little bit of both. It's like, oh, do you prefer photo or video? I couldn't give him an answer. I was like, I love both, because I've been making YouTube videos for a very long time. And so like, I've always loved videos, even before I started photography. And it's like, it's, for me, it's kind of the same. Like you're going to be creative in both genres. Like, it's just a different format, you know?
It's peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, they kind of go together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just frames, right? And then you just the editing part is what I think is the most difficult part for a lot of people, because that's when you really have to put in the work and like take a lot of time. But awesome. So you also mentioned that you read books.
I do.
Okay. So, let me ask you this. So from all the books you've read, what's the most interesting one so far?
Oh my gosh. It's not business related or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's Anthony Kiedis' autobiography from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, I mean, that was like, I'm a huge fan of music.
Yeah.
And then reading his autobiography and then seeing behind the scenes of what went into his music. Like, I love that behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
You know, like with movies, they come with behind the scenes. Like I love watching that, which at one point I wanted to be an actor also. So, I mean, I love videography. I love what goes into behind the scenes of everything. I love seeing just how everything works. But yeah, his autobiography I loved it. And I bought the book for my husband. He read it and then I read it and I was like, oh my God, I love it. But I have other books.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I just can't think of their names.
Yeah. No worries. Sometimes I forget the authors' names.
Oh, I know.
I do it all the time. But there's so many, because I'm a big reader as well. And of course, I watch a ton on YouTube, but it's just different when you're reading a book, than just watching a video. But yeah, so what's next for you? What's next for your business? What's next for Michelle? Is there any new projects you're working on right now?
Newest projects right now, I just started doing my officially the Brave sessions.
Yeah.
Where I'm just giving back to my infertility and cancer world community. That's really, I think 2020, 2021, 22, I was working so hard to make up the money that we lost in those years that I burned myself out.
Got it.
And, you kind of lose that passion a little when you're just working so hard.
Yeah.
And so this year I was like, I really want to get back into doing workshops, having fun, networking, going back to when I started, when everything was exciting and new and I was learning. So Brave sessions for my soul, the hobby part of me, the giving back. And then business side, I want to start doing mentorships, shadowing sessions, and giving back to the photography community via, the newbies that want to learn. And I also just love helping people.
Yeah.
And that also giving back and teaching and stuff like that. So the pandemic kind of messed it up in 2020. Mm-hmm. And finally now I'm like, okay, I need to, circle back to that and start doing mentorships and teaching and stuff.
That's awesome. Another interesting question I want to ask you, and ask everybody this, just kind of it's an interesting question. So let's say you can move anywhere in the world and it's all paid for. They'll pay for the house. Mm-hmm. Where would it be and why?
Oh, Ireland.
Oh, why?
Yeah.
Why Ireland?
I'm mixed with Irish. I'm very mixed ethnicity wise, very mixed, but I do have a lot of Irish in me. My husband's majority Irish. Oh. And that would be a dream vacation for us. And it's just beautiful. I follow a photographer out there. I think his name's Rob. Mm-hmm. I forget his last name. Amazing Ireland photographer. And I just see his photos and it just looks like a magical place. And I really have no idea what the living situations are like out there. But it just seems like a dream place to be.
That's all. Yeah, it reminds me of the movie Braveheart. Is Braveheart? Is it? I don't know if it was in Ireland, but maybe in England. I don't know. But it kind of reminds me of that landscape. Very green, rolling hills. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
and if I'll send you some photos of this guy. The landscape photo-wise is amazing. Right. Cliffs.
Yeah.
And old castles and all that stuff. It just looks so beautiful out there.
That's awesome. That's amazing. All right. So last question for you is, since you have a ton of knowledge and experience, what 3 pieces of advice would you give to a new photographer starting out that would really make an impact in terms of their, their life and photography?
Number one, learn your camera. Learn how to use it. I always tell people, well, now, I used to tell them before, go to Barnes & Noble and buy a book written about their camera because the manual is robot writing. It's so hard to learn how to use your camera through there. But I learned how to use my camera. I went to Barnes & Noble and I bought a book on my first digital camera. And they gave you scenarios, do this setting, take this photo. Does it look like this? And it's like, oh, wow. Like it was definitely in layman's terms, like very easy to digest how to use your camera. So that really helped me really get to know how to use my camera, Second, I would say shoot everything. Learn how to take a picture of everything, how to get everything right in camera, learning how to use your own own camera. Really just getting everything right in the camera because you can't fix everything, editing, post-processing.
Right.
So I definitely had to learn that shooting film. But digital wise, know how to use your camera, shoot everything as much as possible. Let's see. Definitely have confidence in yourself. That's really big. Like, I feel like my business changed when I started believing in myself.
Yeah.
And I became a fan of my own work. I'll do 4.
Sure, absolutely.
4, I would say, definitely build a community of photographers and people in your industry, and it doesn't even have to be only wedding photographers, but just build your community because that really, really helps.
Yeah.
Like some of my friends in the industry that I have now are people that I met in some of the early day workshops that I went to.
Nice.
And that's another reason why I wanted to start doing workshops again. Like for me, it's not because I need the training. Like I need the community.
The connections.
Yeah, I need the connections. Like it's so much better when you have a community of people around you that you can like feed off of, learn from. Like one of my other buddies right now, we're like kind of planning to do like a little shootout because we're just like, let's just do something fun.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but this is something that came about the last couple of days. I had conversations with other vendors. It's like, when you're in it, right? When you're in the industry and you're trying to explain it to like a family member or someone that doesn't really understand the industry, it's like explaining algebra, right? But when you talk to someone that's in it, it's like, wow, this is awesome. I could actually talk to you and you understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you're like, this, that, when you really have somebody that you can talk to, even if it's somebody who's just getting into it, like you can work like me and my buddy, like we were just getting into it and it's like, well, let's just do a shoot together.
That's awesome,
we threw a workshop or a styled shoot and stuff. So it's like, you want to have people who have more experience in you, people who are at your level. Like you just want to have a good community of people around you because it makes things easier.
Yeah.
Especially starting off in a business. So many people quit before it gets good.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a community of people around you, same thing like with raising a kid, they say it takes a village. If you're running a business, it takes a community too, like to help keep you going.
Exactly.
I've had friends talk me off the ledge. I'm just like, I'm not going to do this. These reels are stupid. And I don't get it. And this, and that, I have somebody who's, her business is like a couple years in and she's telling me, just keep going, keep doing it. Like you could do it, So it's like, for me, like I feed off of people who are new to the industry too, because they have that excitement.
Yeah,
they have,
exactly.
they have that gumption to like keep going, and then I do the same thing for other people too. I'm like, just keep going. It's difficult when you're first starting out, but just keep going. You'll get more clients.
Yep.
So definitely having a community is huge too.
That's great advice. Yeah, because you need that support system. Like I was saying earlier, it's sometimes you're like the lone wolf if your family's not in the industry and like they don't really understand. So like you need someone to kind of like have a conversation with if you have those low points or you need some support about something. And because sometimes when I need like I have questions about something, I just reach out to other photographers like, like I don't know what to do in this situation, right? Or I don't want to make this a super long podcast, but one of my low points was, I think it was like a couple of years ago, and I don't want to mention the venue or the couple, but it wasn't their fault. So I don't know if I shared this with you, but my car got bashed into at the wedding.
Yes.
Yeah. So they broke my back window, and I just had bought that car too. Like it was brand new, and it was like towards the end of the wedding day. And I'm like, what just happened? Like I'm driving home with a open window and like glasses flying everywhere. And I had another wedding the next day. So I was like, man, this sucks. Like, that was one of my low points. Cause like, I got to get this window fixed. And that's part of like being a wedding photographer. You got to have reliable transportation. So man, that was like really tough, So, but I was like, you know what? All my friends was like, you're fine, Mike. Don't worry about that. We'll help you out, blah, blah, blah. So I had that support system to help me, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's definitely when you don't have the answers, it's nice to be able to have 1 or 2 or 10 people to go to answer it for you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll have people because I've been in the industry for so long, I've dealt with every type of client, almost every situation, weather issues, you name it. And, I've dealt with a couple difficult clients and I'm very, I definitely lean in on the, kill them with kindness and all that stuff. And I had an issue with a client years ago, probably over 10 years ago, 11, where I had did their engagement session and I knew they were having, they were also pregnant. It was a surprise. Like they weren't getting married because they were pregnant.
Right.
Like it was a very big surprise. So when I did their engagement session, they had just found out.
Oh.
And so they brought a little ultrasound to their engagement session. And I was like, oh my gosh, this would be so cool because afterwards they were having, she was having a bridal shower.
Okay.
I was like, it would be so cool if you did a slideshow at the bridal shower and the very last, a slideshow of your engagement photos. And the last photo would be the ultrasound photo.
Wow.
And you can announce that way. And so I came up with this great idea and I shot their engagement photos. I think it was like 10 or 11 a.m.
Yeah.
I went home, I edited them right away and I delivered them the same day.
Okay.
And I think the bridal shower was like at 3 or 5 o'clock or something like that. Drove to Riverside, gave her a CD.
Oh.
This is back in the, burner days. Gave her the CD. They played the slideshow at the bridal shower and everything like that. Great. Well, I guess the fiance was kind of expecting a similar fast turnaround time for their wedding photos.
Oh.
And so when it took me 2 months to deliver the wedding photos, he was very upset.
Oh.
And was not happy, even though I was in communication with the bride.
Right.
She was like, oh yeah, whatever. And I was like, it'll be like maybe 2 more weeks, they're coming. And I think I delivered it right around the 2-month mark. And I think at the time my turnaround time was like 6 to 8 weeks. So gotcha. I delivered way at the very end.
Got it.
And so the husband, the fiance, he was very upset with my turnaround time. We got the engagement photos the same day. And I'm like, I was so upset. I was crying. I was like, they're so mad at me. They're upset. And I was like, I didn't have anybody to go to. I was like, what am I going to do? And I ended up making like a little album for them and sent it to them. And I got an email from the bride saying, oh, we love the photos. Thank you so much. Like, she was so happy with them. And later on, they ended up divorcing. Oh. And I talked with my, the bride's sister was one of my clients. That's how I got the sister.
Got it.
She was like, yeah, like, you know, my sister was really happy with the photos. But, you know, her ex-husband has very entitled expectations.
Got it.
So I think when I delivered same day, he expected like
the same thing.
So it's like, you just, I don't know, you have to manage people and expectations in the industry. So I always have people asking like, what would you do in this situation? So I usually kill them with kindness. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, the customer's not always right.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that. Especially when it's in your contract too. You know, I mean, that's why you sell, like, read it over. That's what it's going to be about. But
number 5, have a contract.
there you go. Yeah, number 5. I mean, there's so many things you can talk about.
Yeah, there's so many things as a new photographer, or new business, like.
And I think you should really do a workshop. I think that would be beneficial for a lot of people that want to know, you know, because there's, I get it. A lot of new photographers, they just want to build a portfolio, right? Yeah. But there's more than that. Like being able to communicate, the ability to communicate on a consultation call. How do you book clients? Like, what software do you use? Yeah. You know, do you want to start a sole prop or LLC? Like, taxes. I mean, there's, you know, it's like any business. So
it's so much. Yeah. And now there's so many apps and things you can use, Honeybook and delivery systems you can use. Like, before, there wasn't a lot.
CDs.
Yeah, it was CDs. Like, you'd burn a CD and deliver it, you know. I remember getting a speeding ticket, because I burned a CD and I was like rushing to go deliver it to a client.
Oh, wow.
I got my first speeding ticket.
When was that? When did do you remember the year?
I think that was like in 2010, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or we had our Audi. So yeah, 2010, maybe 2011. Okay.
Because CDs were still, I remember very vividly, because in 2000 to 2004, I was still in high school, and I remember when CD burners came out and Napster. I don't know if you remember Napster, LimeWire. And so I started hustling because I knew I could make money off of it. So I bought a ton of, like, I don't know if you remember Circuit City.
Yes.
So I bought like
41.
Yeah. We're about the same age. So I bought the stack of like 100 CDs. I mean, it was pretty cheap back then. And then I would just burn like custom music CDs, because at the time you couldn't, like, technically, I think at the time iPods were still like fairly new. Like, not everybody could afford a $500 like iPod. Yeah. So I would make custom CDs, and I would just, write down your top 20 songs, and it would take, I remember it would take like an hour to burn the CD.
Yeah. And I still have CD backups of photos. Wow. In my safe.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So I don't know if they work. My computer now doesn't even have like a CD thing on it.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I'm like, I don't know how I would get them anymore.
But like you were saying about galleries, like, it's so easy now. Like, you just upload the photos online, and there you go.
Yeah. It's instant. Yeah. I know people were against like the, what do they call it? Turn and burn or whatever for photos.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was me. But yeah, so now there's just so much stuff. It is overwhelming, because there's, you know, all kinds of stuff you can use, which also makes running a business more expensive because all these monthly subscriptions.
The subscriptions kill us.
Subscriptions.
Yeah, like because now I'm doing video too, so it's like, man, I gotta get Premiere Pro. I gotta get this other like motion array. I mean, it's like so much, but on the other hand, it's like, okay, I get it. I gotta be able to use this to. It's cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, you're right. Like that's something people don't think about when they start doing a business. Like you gotta have to pay for some of the expenses.
Yeah. If you want a quality photo, or you want, good smooth video.
Yeah, exactly.
you gotta pay a little extra.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people in the industry who charge accordingly, like somebody who's just starting out charging $100 for a photo shoot, like do your thing.
Yep.
Good for you. It has no effect on me.
Yeah, because I remember, I still remember, I think I had my very first camera when I started making money was for just family photos. Was I believe it was the T3, Canon T3 or T6. And I shot it in JPEG because I didn't know how to edit. So I just delivered that way.
I don't know. I shot in JPEG for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that wasn't, a good thing to do.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, this is easy. I just shoot the profile and I'm done.
Yeah. But I mean, even before, like I was editing on a program called Aperture.
Oh.
On my first Mac.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of stuff I could do. Like presets didn't exist then. So like I'm, adjusting things myself.
Yeah.
At the time I was shooting like true to color.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then like as things evolved, now you have presets and I don't know what Photoshop thing is. I don't do actions.
Yeah.
So now there's just so much more stuff now. It's overwhelming. That's why I'm not going into video.
Yeah. The cool thing about now is the AI technology. So I don't know if you ever heard of like
scary.
Luminar. Like you can create. It can create images for you. Let's say you just put whatever, even you can even use your old photos, right? Like that. There was I think a couple months ago, people just post like their portraits of themselves and it like creates like 20 different images. It was kind of interesting and crazy at the same time.
Yeah. Joey Rieger.
Yeah.
He posted like 3 photos, which I thought were photos he took.
Yeah.
And he said, no, it was AI. Yep. That's why like on one of the photos, the lady has like 9 fingers.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
It's
like
insane.
It looks real.
Yeah. Recently I've just been testing it out too. So I've been using it like Chat GPT to create captions for me, or even descriptions on like my website, which is kind of scary. Like I just give it 2 sentences. Ridiculous. It'll write like 4 paragraphs for me. It's insane. Yeah.
I heard people in college are using it and they're actually getting in trouble for plagiarism because it doesn't like it types it all out.
Yeah.
But it's taking, excerpts from places and things, and like people have gotten in trouble because it like dings up on the plagiarism thing.
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, it's probably like the easiest thing to do, but yeah, it's well, what I find is that like you have to give it more information to be more specific. Like, yeah, I do find it's easy. Like you put 2 sentences, let's say, can you create a caption for me for this Instagram post about a couple in Riverside? And I just say, oh, it's a beautiful venue and another like adjective. And I was like, I'm still amazed like it can do that, but it's very generic.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still creepy. Like I've been back in the days before internet was like available to like regular families.
Yeah.
So now seeing how it's evolved is like really crazy, but awesome at the same time.
Do you think there's like, in the next few years, do you think, and I know it's probably still out there, but do you think your phones and cameras are going to have the ability like to change aperture and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I remember years ago, I'd gotten a call on the phone and they were doing a survey. And they were saying, one of the questions they asked is, do you ever think that you'll be able to buy something from your phone? This was like right when smartphones first came out.
Yeah.
Do you think that you'll be able to buy something from a vending machine from your phone? And I'm like, wow, that's out of this world.
Yeah,
but I was like, I guess so. And it's totally possible now. So it's like, yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of cell phone companies they know how important the camera is in their phones. So I think the camera in the phones is just going to evolve more and more and more.
I'll be super interested if your camera can like, have scrolling wheels. So just that picture.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or, I mean, you might have to like go in there manually and like click it. And then it's definitely not like on the fly type of thing, like with our cameras. But yeah, I mean, they already do.
They do pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people are, using iPhones for commercials and stuff now.
Oh, yeah. It's insane. So that's like, well, let me ask you this too. I think this is another interesting question to ask you, since you've probably been in so many different ceremonies. What's your thought process or opinion about phones or any electronic devices during the ceremony? Because I know, sometimes people just stuck their hand out, right? Or I've had people like with their tablets up in the air like this. So what's your opinion about that?
I'm mixed.
Okay.
Like, I think the unplugged weddings are awesome because it forces everybody to be in the moment and just experience it and just have that love and excitement for the couple and view it with your eyes. But then the other side of me is, would be that person in the audience also, or, in the guests, like wanting to just have my own little photo right away. So what I usually tell people is like, if you're going to have an unplugged wedding or not unplugged, people are still going to take photos with their phones,
Right.
And I would just tell them to just be very covert James Bond about it. Like, take a picture, put your phone down, and if you're definitely going to be person taking pictures, don't be in the aisle seat. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good advice.
If it's off of the aisle, like we can't really see it too much.
Yeah.
And I know everybody wants to be in the aisle to get that, know whatever. But yeah, if you're going to sneak a photo, just don't be in the aisle.
I think the reason why you'll see hands sticking out for a long time is because they're recording video.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, I get it. But yeah, like just keep it within your space, right? And so the photos will look a little bit better. But yeah, when I see like the recording, like way out, like you can just get it from here, like,
Yeah. And I mean, I will be that photographer who I'll walk up and I'll
tap them.
I'll tap it. And I think some people they're just so excited. They want to have it and they just don't realize like, oh crap, like I'm in your way. Yeah. So like, I'm never rude about it because everybody wants to have their own little thing from the wedding day. Yeah. But also I think guests just forget like there's professional photographers,
exactly.
And they see us moving around. So they maybe think like they're being covert about it, but they're not. But I think it's cute, like the Uncle Bobs and stuff like that. Like they don't bother me, but at the same time, I don't have a problem telling them like, hey, back up a little bit or, just like scoot over or put the phone away or,
like, when you're doing family photos, like Uncle Bob's like right over your shoulder.
Yeah. Like I haven't had one who's like right over my shoulder or whatever. Most of the time they just come up to me and they're like, what kind of camera are you using? What lens? And, like a couple times I've had some that have better cameras than me. I'm like
it brings out a 200 mil.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm just like, like I've had a couple who have the same camera as me. I'm like, I was like, are you a photographer? Oh no, I just do it for fun. And I'm like,
Wow.
dang. But yeah, like the Uncle Bobs, they're just so excited. Most of the time, at least the ones that I've come across, they're respectable.
Yeah.
You know, I let them take their picture because usually they're not professional photographers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they post the photo, it's going to be true to color, usually not edited.
Yeah.
Might not be straight either.
Yeah. Because you're off to the angle too. So.
Yeah. So, no, I don't. I mean, I let, people take cell phone photos and video during sessions and shoots and stuff, like, because I know it's going to be different than what I deliver.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I think we'll wrap it up here. Wow. It's over 2.5 hours. Start chat, but it was awesome talking to you, Michelle.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Super. I mean, we could talk more. I mean, you have.
I know. I could talk all day.
Yeah, because I mean, you've been doing it for so long, and I think you have more to get. I mean, we'll schedule you another podcast soon.
Yeah.
But how can people connect with you?
Definitely, like my favorite is Instagram. Michelle Dudley Photography, and yeah, my DMs are open. Sometimes I get to them like a few days later.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely, a DM person. So
Awesome.
and then my contact stuff is on there.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah. So we'll add all her information down below in the description. So if you want to connect with her, hire her as your wedding photographer, feel free to contact her. She is more active on her Instagram.
Yeah.
So yeah, do that. If you don't have Instagram, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I have Facebook too, but I'm like rarely on there.
Yeah. I'm there, but I just connect my Instagram to Facebook. So it's like, it's easier. But all right, guys, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. And until next time, we will see you guys on the next one. Bye.